once again, this is Dr. Phil Fernandes, the president of the Institute of Biblical Defense, the pastor of Trinity Bible Fellowship, and the professor of apologetics and religion for Veritas International University. Today we're going to be talking about signs that precede the second coming of Jesus Christ to the planet Earth. So I want to read to you from Matthew chapter 24, and this is from the New King James Version of the Bible. In Matthew 24, starting at verse 3, "Now as he," that's Jesus, "sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, 'Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?' Jesus answered and said to them, 'Take heed that no one deceive you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will deceive many.'" So you have false Christ. "And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." So these are kind of birth pains leading to the end, as Jesus is going to say in a little bit. "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows," or the beginning of birth pains. "Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake." That's really key, that we know the end will be close when we're hated for being Christians. We're hated for Christ's name in every nation on earth. "And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another." Some translations there, many will be offended, many will fall away from the faith, the great apostasy that the Apostle Paul talks about in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. "And many false prophets will rise up and deceive many, and because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold." So lawlessness increases, man's love grows cold. "But he who endures to the end shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come." So that's another key. Not only will we be hated in all nations because of Christ's name, but the gospel will also be preached to all nations. And that's every language group, every people group, and we're making great strides in that right now. "Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Sabbath," because you're only allowed to travel a certain distance on the Sabbath. And so Jesus is kind of slamming the Pharisees for their man-made traditions. "For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. Then if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Christ,' or 'There he is,' do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect." Paul talks about the Antichrist and the false prophet performing great demonic miracles. "See, I have told you beforehand. Therefore, if they say to you, 'Look, he is in the desert,' do not go out. Or 'Look, he is in the inner rooms,' do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together." So when you see the signs of the times, they will accompany the last days and let us know that we are close. "Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other." And so Jesus here gives us some of the signs that will precede his return to the planet Earth. And you can look at Matthew 24, verses 1 to 31. We basically covered that passage right now. Then 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. The book of Revelation, the book of Daniel, and the book of Zechariah. And you get a lot of signs that we should look for as we get closer to Christ's return. And so I'm going to just list some of them for you right now. You can make a checklist on these to see if you think that we're getting close to the return of Christ. Now, I will say this before we look at the list, that Jesus made the end-time prophecies so vague that every generation of Christians for the past 2,000 years would think that Jesus could possibly return during their generation, during their lifetime. Yet he makes the end-time prophecies so specific that last generation will know for sure when that Jesus is going to return in their lifetime. Unfortunately for us, he tells us, okay, look, the gospel is going to be preached to all nations. You'll be hated all nations because of my name. And then you'll see the abomination of desolation, the Antichrist and the image of the beast in the temple. And then it's time to head for the hills. So for somebody like me, if they just start rebuilding the temple, man, I'm going to be worrying at that point. But it's specific enough so that if there is, like Daniel 9:24 to 27, a 7-year peace treaty between Israel and many other nations, and then the peace treaty is broken halfway through, a guy goes into the temple, proclaims himself to be God, demands that he be worshipped, then you know for sure it's time to head for the hills. But in the next episode, we'll be looking at some of these signs of Christ's return, and we have been forewarned by the Lord, and so we should heed his warnings. God bless you. Please subscribe to the Phil Fernandes Show. We need subscribers, and we just want to get the gospel out and not only share the faith, but defend the faith as well. God bless you.